From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
All right. Welcome back. My name is John. This is the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast. We are a weekly podcast about consumption. We are proud members of the You Run Podcast Network. You can go to yourunpodcast.com and check out all of our previous episodes, our current episode, and all the other great shows on the You Run Podcast Network. Loving stuff already. That's what I do. With me this week, of course, is the host of the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast. His name is Sean. And Sean, I hope you edit around my buffoonery at the beginning of this. You probably won't, because that's what kind of great friend you are. How are you today?
If you refer to it, it makes it really hard to edit around.
Sean, what have you been watching this week? Do you have any fun stuff that you consumed over the course of the last several days?
I watched some things. I watched a few things that were actually fun, as opposed to the 77 minutes last week about the McDonald's massacre. Didn't watch anything depressing and shit like that, but I
thought you were going to say as opposed to the 77 minutes of the Mickey Mouse massacre, but I guess the McDonald's massacre is more depressing because that
slightly.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's
two different types of depression.
Thing.
Yeah. Real depression, fictitious depression.
I ended up watching a movie called Back in Action with Billy Blanks and Rowdy
Love it.
Roddy Piper. Easy for me to say. That was a movie. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. It's basically a story about Roddy Piper is a police officer that's trying to make a drug bust against the mafia, and Billy Blank's sister is involved somehow, so they kind of team up. It's this weird, I don't know, it was a weird movie, a weird action kind of buddy thing, but they're not really buddies, but they are buddies. It's a weird movie.
It sounds familiar. I feel like I've seen this before, but I could be wrong. It's been a while if I have.
I also watched a documentary. It was on YouTube. It's from 1990. It's an HBO documentary called The Best Hotel on Skid Row, which...
Ooh. Is it about, what's it? Hotel Cecil?
No, I don't remember what the hotel was. It's in, I want to say it was in Los Angeles or maybe San Francisco. It's definitely California. It's about tenants that live in this flop house, essentially. I watched something like that, I want to say like a year or two ago, that was on Freevee or Amazon Prime, one of those things. It was kind of like about the last flop house in New York. And this one, I believe, was in California. It kind of just follows the day-to-day life of some of these people that live in this flop house. And one lady's a heroin addict and a recovering prostitute, or vice versa, flip-flop that. I don't know if she's a recovering heroin addict that's a prostitute. And there's a guy who, he isn't destitute. He seems like he has money, but he has a spinal injury that he doesn't leave the house except to go get haircuts. And he has like this guy that can't talk at all because he had throat cancer that goes and runs his errands for him. I don't know. It's an interesting documentary. I'll link it in the show notes.
I fell into a rabbit hole at one point just on Hotel Cecil documentaries because there's a lot of weird stuff in there. I'm assuming you're familiar with this, but for those at home, if you're not, like, you want a fun rabbit hole to go into, just go into look into what's happened at that hotel. But it doesn't sound like it's that far off from the same type of stories.
I think they're all kind of very similar.
Yeah.
There was this one guy who was a tenant, and he got some kind of government assistance, and they got $25 a day. And he said basically something to the effect of, like, rent here is $8 a day at this flop house. Why would I pay $8 a day when I can just spend that $8 on cigarettes and drinks at the bar, and then I can just sleep in the alley? And he had a friend that would like watch his stuff at his room in this flop house. So, I mean, I could get his logic, but it also seemed like $8 a day out of your 25, that's only like a third of your income.
Did he basically have a squatter sing in his flop house so that he could go out and spend the $8 on cigarettes and booze?
It kind of sounds like that, doesn't it? But no, yeah. I think it was a legit he knew someone else that had a room.
Oh, okay. So he's like a roomie or something.
Yeah, that was like holding his stuff. Like, he never slept in this room with this guy. He just had him watch the very few things that he had, maybe a couple shirts or pairs of pants, a pair of underwear, some socks. There was another guy there were 3 rooms in this place that were larger than all the others. And basically there was a guy that lived there for multiple years, and he paid every day. You know, he paid his daily rent, and he just lived in one of the bigger rooms. I mean, these places are like the size, think maybe like a little bit bigger than the size of a bed and all that stuff. The one I saw like I said a couple of years ago that I'll link in the show notes because I can't remember the name of it, that was like the walls were paper thin. The ceiling of the rooms was chicken wire, basically, that they would hang stuff from. This one they were legit rooms. So they were a little bit better off.
What year is this documentary about a flop house?
90.
And take 90. So in 1990, that would have been approximately $240 a month, give or take $8, roughly. How much do you think that place costs now? Or in
today's dollars?
Yeah.
I don't know, like $1,000.
Probably.
Oh, you don't have the answer? You're just having me guess?
I'm guessing, yeah.
What the fuck?
Well, I don't know.
I thought you would be like, you'd have the currency calculator.
You said it's in California?
Yes.
I'm going to guess it's probably closer to like 3,000.
Yeah, damn. All right. Well, anyways, on top of that, I watched a movie called... Yeah. You're going to look it up now?
I'm going to Google how much does a flop house cost. Let's go with LA or San Francisco?
Do LA. It might be cheaper.
I would have thought the other way around. 10 best flop house... Yelp. 10 best flop houses in California. Go ahead. If I find something interesting, I'll fill you in on it.
I also watched a movie from 1985 called Zone Troopers. It's a Charles Band movie starring Tim Thomerson, Timothy Van Patten, and Art LaFleur. So that's all-star casting right there. About U.S. troops in World War II Italy and their behind enemy lines they're fighting the German. They encounter the Germans. They're behind enemy German lines in Italy. And they find a crashed spaceship. They befriend this like buggy-looking alien. He looks like an insect, and they beat off the Germans, pun intended. And there's a depiction of Hitler in the movie, so that's always classy. And the music, the Charles Band composed the actual music that wasn't In the Mood. You know, that old 30s song or 40s song In the Mood that plays throughout this movie. But Charles Band, I guess he's credited with doing some of the music. And it is very reminiscent of Star Wars, like the Imperial March. There's a few songs that are they change the third note to be a little bit different. So, I wanted to show you the poster. I'll link this in the show notes, but I kind of talked about this a little earlier. And I don't know if you'd ever seen this, if you've ever seen that poster if you've ever seen that poster before.
I'm pretty sure I have.
I remember seeing this poster in the video store on the VHS tape so often, and I always wanted to rent this movie, and then for some reason the other day it just kind of popped up, so I decided to watch that. But again, it'll be all linked in the show notes, and that's what I've been watching.
So I found a pretty good flop motel. It doesn't show the rates here because I don't know why, but it does have Mickey Mouse stickers on the wall. The pictures of the room have a pile of 3 different band shoeboxes, and the table, I can't read this, but it is definitely carved in with some kind of knife. So this looks like a winner. It gets 2.5 stars on Yelp. $80.73 per night. So that's only a little bit of inflation.
Yeah, if you said 24, you thought it was $240 roughly.
Well, it's 10 times more.
Yeah.
If it was $8 a night, it's $80. Yeah, that's with my very brief research on flop houses in LA. But it's near Disney. It says it's walking distance to Disney. So that's perfect. That's a plus.
Well, I know where I'm going.
That's right. I do like to walk. Does that mean I should say or talk about some of the shit that I watched?
I mean, you don't have to, but that's generally what we do on this show.
Well, the high point of my week wasn't really watching anything through a television. I went downtown and caught the last final tour, whatever, NOFX show. Their last club show that they did was in Detroit, which was last Wednesday at the time of this recording. They've been a favorite band of mine for about as long as I can remember, and they played great. And surprise, surprise, Co-Defendants opened for them, so I got to see them again, which I was expecting to see Get Dead. It turned out apparently one of the guys is a teacher and couldn't get out of work, so Co-Defendants played instead. Didn't know that. I don't really want a kid, but if I did, took him to parent-teacher conference and there's one of the guys from Get Dead, I'd be like, wait a minute. Can my kid go on tour with you? He needs to learn the ways of the drugs and the rock and stuff or whatever. But that was a good time, and the term last tour is used with bands a lot, and it kind of a lot of times feels like it's a gimmick. I don't know that I feel like this is a gimmick this time. It just doesn't. The lead singer of this band's always been very upfront about things, almost to his detriment quite often. So if they're doing this just as a gimmick, I would be a little surprised. But regardless, it was for $80 a really good show. Can't complain about it. Even though I like seeing people be like, oh, it's so punk rock, you charge $80 for a ticket. I'm like, yeah, God forbid you do something for 40 years and you're able to make a fucking living off of it. Fuck off.
It's not very punk of you, John.
I guess not. That's fine. I don't care. Let's see. I'm still up to date on Hard Knocks. I still don't think much of Caleb Williams or much of the, like, honestly, it feels very much so like the missionary sex of the Hard Knocks versions, I guess, thus far. Like, this is not the most entertaining Hard Knocks season to me. Have you been caught up with that, or are you behind on that?
No, I watch them as soon as they come out.
Any thoughts on that, or you feel about the same?
I think we're like the third episode in. I think they come out on Tuesdays, right? So
yeah,
they have not cut a single person yet.
They don't have to till tomorrow. So NFL cut day, they do, instead of doing weeks like they used to, because they would go from, I think, like 96 to like 75, 70, I want to say 70, something like that. They take like 2 different cut days where they go from 90 something to 70 something down to 53. And when they got rid of the 4th preseason game, they just said, all of you are done on the last day. So you should have 2 more episodes. One where I don't know who Chicago played this week, but whatever their 3rd game was. And then the last will be the like wrap up with people getting the fist up the ass, getting cut, all that type of stuff.
Give them the fist.
It's either that or you go back to working at Walgreens, I guess. I started getting into the A&E biographies and watched the Ted DiBiase episode you mentioned last week.
Yep.
I skipped a handful of them. Like I didn't care about Roman Reigns or a couple other newer guys. I was like, meh, pass, for at least for right now. But I guess I didn't know as much about Ted DiBiase. Like I knew of him. I remember him being around a lot, but I didn't know a lot about him behind the scenes. And frankly, I didn't care about him at that. When Ted DiBiase was like in his heyday, I was a kid. I didn't give a shit. I just knew he was that rich asshole. Didn't really think much past that. I think it's kind of funny how they like really tried to play up the gimmick even when he's off camera. But past that, it's
how it used to be, John. How it used to be.
Did you think that was a great episode? Or did you think that was just kind of like, he was really hot, then he fucked up like a lot of wrestlers do, now he's a dad?
Well, I don't think it was quite that bland, but I thought it was a pretty good episode. But yeah, I could see they don't really go much through, like I said last week, they skip 6 years of his career.
Yeah.
I don't know how basically the story is, for those who haven't seen it, is he really goes into this whole bit, and it's a thing that he really talks about a lot. He's very open about it, that his wife basically found, the way that they say it, she like found receipts or something, like the credit card bills or whatever of him.
She found suspicious receipts, confronted him over the phone, and he said he didn't want to talk about it on the phone.
So he came
and
yeah, she said, get your shit out of here, essentially.
Basically, yeah.
But now he's a preacher. I was going to say priest. Now he's a preacher guy in the church somewhere. And it's like, he seems like an all right dude. But I've heard things about embezzling money and all this other shit that his son and him have been involved in. They didn't cover any of that. Just a side note, I've been getting into the Jim Cornette YouTube channel. And he has a podcast that's fairly popular. And he kind of shoots on all these wrestlers, all these, every time one of these biographies come out, he kind of says, well, this is what I know about this. And he just kind of shoots on all these wrestlers and stuff. And it's interesting. He's a funny guy. So
that's why we need the like big 5-part Vince McMahon episode, because that one should be, like I said, whenever they do that, which probably won't happen.
It won't be on that one.
It probably won't happen until he's in jail and can't like sue about it or something. I guess you can sue from jail, can't you? I don't know.
It's like a Faraday cage for suing, I guess.
Yeah, but whenever that one happens, that should be an interesting one. We said that a bunch of times. The only other thing I watched, I got on Netflix and watched The Murder of Aaron McNair, which is about the death of Steve McNair, quarterback who came out of some little college, went to the Super Bowl, lost, blah, blah, blah.
With the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, with the Tennessee Titans, later with the Ravens. If I remember right?
I think it was
the Ravens he went to. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I should know this. I just watched this. These Netflix documentaries, they have a whole series that are like, I think they're all called like The Untold Story or some shit like that. Because they did one on Manziel. They did one on the Florida Gators. They've done a few others too. And I remember watching the Florida Gators one. I'm like, how come they're not talking about all the attempted murders and the assaults and all the other like rampant crime that these players are like? They skip over all that shit. With Manziel, they skip over a ton of shit with him. Like they touch on his drug use, but they don't really go into it. They touch on like some of the gambling allegations and him getting paid, but they don't go into it. So with this one, I'm going to make it sound like I'm just totally crash coursing a like murder investigation, but that's kind of what they do. They basically say like, it's like an hour and 15 minutes ish documentary. It's like the first 20 minutes is, this is Steve McNair, who Steve McNair was and his career. The next like 20, 25 minutes is like, this is this like chick that he got involved with. Then he gets, killed. And they're like, basically they pin it on her. They find her guilty of killing him and she's dead too or something like that. I think they're both dead at the scene at the same time. So basically they say that she killed him. And then the last so what am I at, 45 minutes? The last 10 to 20 minutes of it is like, here's this other private investigator who's like, this entire investigation is bullshit. Here's this other, I think he was like a drug dealer or something that's like, this guy did it. Here's some proof. He throws out like a bunch of phone records, a bunch of how he got the gun, a bunch of other shit like this. And then they have the original cop that was investigating come on and go, this guy's full of shit. And that's basically it. I'm like, so all you're going to do is say this is just a incident where a murder-suicide where the girl killed the guy. That's tragic and that sucks, but that's not really a compelling documentary at that point.
Yeah, because you're not telling us anything we don't know.
Yeah, and you're not,
so they have to cast some doubt on the whole thing.
Right. And they don't even really dig into that doubt. They bring it up, they say it, but it's like, okay, where's the other hour on whatever this guy claims? Don't just have this cop come and say, I don't agree with him, and then credits. The fuck is that? I don't know. I feel like I'm not going to say all of them because obviously, we both watch documentaries on Netflix. Some are much better than others. But it feels like a lot of these untold sports stories ones are just kind of puff pieces that they're just kind of cranking out just for the sake of having something to click on. They're like the clickbait of Netflix titles.
I wouldn't say that's probably very far from the intended purpose. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. That's all I got. You got anything else you want to touch on before we switch gears?
Let's switch gears. Put it in reverse. Oh, wait.
We're going to drop it into reverse. We're going to put it into third gear at the same time. We're going to blow the transmission, take a break, and come right back.
Neutral drops.
If you have a soft spot for nostalgia and all things pop culture related, then you need to check out Video Tasties on YouTube. You can find them at the You Run Podcast Network and also at youtube.com/@Video Video Tasties features theatrical versus extended cut content, as well as retrospectives on TV shows, movies, video game reviews, and throwbacks. Basically, if it's anything from your past that you want to go back and relive, Video Tasties has a video for you that can let you do that.
And they're a member of the You Run Podcast Network. You can find them at yourunpodcast.com.
So, we're back, we're loosened up, we're limber, we're ready to go, and we're going to talk about the often heralded mega movie, summer blockbuster, The Night of the Kickfighters from 1990.
1988.
We start.
I got 1988 here.
1988. I have that too. I don't know where I read that. I thought...
Off to a rousing start. Must have been all those kicks to the head.
You know what? They have the little spiky thing on them. Absolutely. All right. Our third-party review this week is actually on IMDb because, believe it or not, there's not a whole lot of third-party reviews out there for this movie. And this reviewer, we're going to call him Special Needs 4 because he has a much more offensive name. But we're going to call it that. If you want to see his actual name, you can go to the Night of the Kickfighters page on IMDb and go to the reviews. There's only 5 of them. And he says, fantastic, 9 out of 10. This film is undoubtedly the best film ever made. The editing and camera work is excellent and the plot is gripping. If I was on death row and I was able to watch one film with my last meal, this would be the one. With that in mind, we're going to put Special Needs 4 to the side. And Sean, please tell us what this movie is about.
All right, so for that, we look at the storyline and the plot. We go to IMDb. First off, this gets a 3.0 out of 10 with 135 ratings. And we go to the one on the top, which I don't ever know which one's the storyline of the plot, but it says, a champion kickboxer is hired to get back the kidnapped daughter of a wealthy businessman. And if we go down to the storyline, this is thanks to Anonymous. It says, a new high-tech laser is being developed under the watchful eye of a scientist when a mercenary group tries to steal it. It's up to the Night Raider to return the laser safely before it falls into the wrong hands.
That laser is 100% a dick and balls that shoots lasers.
It skeets out lasers, yes.
It definitely does. Who's in this movie?
All right, so for that, I mean, let's talk about the high points, because a lot of these people were never in another thing. We have let's go from the most recognizable to the least recognizable of the 3 people that I've listed that are in the cast. That's a lot of words to say. Adam West is in this movie. You may know Adam West as being the original TV Batman. We've got
Also the Mayor of Quahog.
Yes, that's true. We have Carol Stricken, who played Lurch in the 90s Addams Family movies, so that's probably where you know him from. He fell pretty far from that.
Holy shit, does he stick out like a sore thumb in this movie, too?
Yeah, he sure does. And then we have Marcia Carr, who we talked about her in Killer Workout, a.k.a. Aerobicide, in our January kind of movie New Year resolution fitness horror movies. And she's been in a bunch of stuff, but her career pretty much died after this movie. The other person I did want to mention is the star and one of the writers of this movie, Andy Bowman, who, according to the poster of Night of the Kickfighters, is the star of, well, first off, it says he's World Karate Kickboxing Champion. He's the star of Ninja 2, Ninja 3, and Night Kill, but there's one problem there. Number one, I couldn't find anything called the World Karate Kickboxing anything. I couldn't find Ninja 2, Ninja 3, or Night Kill. They seemingly don't exist, and I don't understand why this movie's called Night of the Kickfighters, and sometimes it's called Night Raiders. This movie really has, what Kickfighters? Why use that term? So anyways, the only other thing Andy Bowman has really done is it seems like after this, he edited some films, or he was the director of a film, namely one called Johnson 2, The Passion of the Johnson, in 2005. So yeah, he looks like he edited some shorts and maybe directed a couple shorts, but that looks like that's really all he's got going on. No other record of this guy, and he's the star, quote unquote, star of this movie.
I really think more posters need to have parentheses under the lead actor's name with star of other movies that you
don't
never
exist.
heard of. Like, well, that'd be great too. But even if it was just like Paul Rudd right now is a megastar, right? Like he's one of the most recognizable people in Hollywood, arguably. I'd love to see like Ghostbusters, Cold City, New York, or Frozen Empire. That's what it was. Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire.
Cold City, New York.
Yeah. Starring Paul Rudd, star of Halloween 6, Curse of Michael Myers, or something like that. Like, it's not like we're talking about like, Robert Downey Jr., star of Avengers and Avengers 2 and Avengers 3. Like, no, we're going to pick the most obscure title we can I would like to see more of that on movie posters. I think that would be fun.
And I think we should make full disclaimer that I think we both agreed that we should talk about this movie because, for me, I know I can speak for myself. Looking at the poster, this is an amazing poster. It's like his head is photoshopped. Yeah. He's not like a fat guy or anything. He's in good shape. But this face that he's making like on this poster,
80s, 1990s, good shape.
No, he's got some abs in the movie. I don't have abs, but his face looks like they took this really awkward look on his face and they photoshopped it onto maybe a different body. I can't quite tell.
Honestly, even like he looks like he's trying to like tear ass here. Like he's got one leg up. Aside from this weird animated like ninja star they put in his boot or loafer or something. He looks like he's trying to just like rip a fart, and
he looks like he's trying to hold it in,
or that too.
Yeah.
One or the other. He's trying to either pass gas or hold gas. One of the two. Something's going on with his ass.
Let me try and not soil my pants. Too late.
There you go. See, been a good night for that. So this movie, you mentioned the plot here about him trying to get a laser back from some kidnapped daughter or some bullshit. Could you follow this plot at all? Because I'll be upfront with you, and I said this to you once. I watched this movie as I usually do. I, was not sober the first time I watched it, and I found myself having a great time watching this movie, enjoying all this type of stuff that was happening. But I've lost count somewhere around 15 of like, I have no idea what the fuck is going on in this movie, like as far as the plot. And to piggyback, like to check myself, I was like, all right, you haven't done anything yet. It's, you're perfectly of sound mind right now. Let's watch this movie again and see if this you being dumb and high, or is this just you being dumb? And the answer is it's just me being dumb, because I still, after the second time, I was like, okay, I'm catching a couple things I might have either missed or forgotten, or maybe both, but I still felt like I was going through plenty of parts of this movie. I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck is going on in this storyline. There's a lot of entertaining stuff on the screen that happens. Like, I'm entertained because it's like a lot of random bullshit happening. But if you were to ask me what the actual story of this is, I'd be like, kick fighting, I guess.
Well, John, lucky for you, I got your back.
All right.
I put in the effort to try and write down what I thought this movie was about. So that's what I'm gonna mention it here.
That sounds like you had a similar thought process than I did, since you had to write it down to figure it out.
Yeah, the first time it took a bit. I finished it and I was like, well, that was fun, but I don't know what the hell happened. So the second time I watched it, I made sure to like take copious notes. You want me to just rattle off what this kind of storylines about? Okay. So Adam West is Carl McMahon. Okay. He's a scientist who creates a laser that hits stuff and turns it into dust. But if you're registered, if your retina or something is registered with the laser, it won't kill you. It won't even shoot at you. It just like the laser goes in and it retracts. It's like, and it goes back in. Okay, so because everybody wants this awesome laser, they kidnap his daughter in an effort to get the laser as ransom for her. Andy Bowman is Brett Cady. He's an international kick fighter, whatever the hell that is, who is hired by Adam West to assemble a crack team of unique kick fighters to go rescue his daughter. So Cady goes and he assembles the team of Aldo, who is a magician who happens to know some karate, which, okay. Socrates, I was going to say Socrates, but Socrates, also known as Sock. They call him Sock. He's a black guy who gets beat up in low-rent strip clubs. Then we have Clea.
This is the most, I'm glad you said it, but the most amazing and depressing strip club all at the same time.
Oh, yeah, it's a real treat. We have Clea, who's a computer
strip club
expert.
Is almost a stretch.
Yeah,
Sorry,
for sure.
Clea.
It is.
So,
Clea, the computer expert, right? You got to have one of those. We have Bomber, who's a metalhead / stoner, who is kind of like the James Bond.
Kind of looks like Alice Cooper.
Yeah, he's kind of like a mix between Bill and Ted, but he's kind of like Q from James Bond. And we have Hal, who is basically an ineffective Asian police guy or something. That's what he does. He's just like he's a police person. And that's the team. So what could go wrong? So the people that are trying to steal the laser are Marcia Carr, who plays, what is her name? She plays Kadisha, which great name, she's of foreign descent and her accent is sometimes it's like Israeli, sometimes it sounds like it's supposed to be French. I don't think she really knows who she's supposed to be.
Very strong cleavage game in this movie.
Yes, very strong. But there's no nudity in this movie, so...
No, actually, that's one of the things I wrote down, is that every time someone starts to get horny, well, there is nudity because the stripper has a little bit of nudity, but
no, she doesn't.
Not much. Thought she did.
She never takes never takes off her top or her bottoms.
I did write down that, and this is the exact note that I wrote down. No time for sex, we have kick fighting to do. That is a reoccurring theme throughout this movie.
We're almost about to get it on, but there's kick fighting that needs to happen here.
Yep.
Why kick fighting?
Why not?
Kick fighting sounds like something that you do as a 10-year-old and you go spend the night at your friend's house. And somehow at 2 a.m, you get involved in a kick fight. Like that's...
And somehow Adam West finds out that you did this and turns it into a movie.
He's the parent, the frustrated and underslept parent who busts in on your kick fight to scream at you to go to bed.
I think that might be Lurch, but yes, maybe a combination of the two. Because that's basically what Lurch does, is he busts in and chokes /
picks people up, chokes them, makes a face.
Anyway, I still don't know what happened in this movie other than what you just told me.
Well, that's what happens. Yeah, they got to go rescue the daughter. I love that Adam West in this movie, he must have gotten paid by the word, because he says next to nothing. Like, he does have a few little things that he talks about. And I think that he's paid by the word because when they have a phone call and he's on the end, like where someone's holding the phone up and he's supposed to be talking to him, they've dubbed over someone else's voice. Like, they couldn't even get him to say anything. It doesn't sound anything like him, but they couldn't get him to say anything. That's
possible, because there's a lot of scenes where I do remember watching this and thinking, like, that's Adam West, but that's not Adam West. Like, what the hell's going on here? Because if you are familiar with the works of Adam West, like, he's got a very familiar voice and tone and delivery of his, vocabulary. It does feel like an Adam West impersonator at quite a few points.
Yes.
Good talk.
That's kind of an Adam West impersonation almost, right?
Yeah, it's close enough.
Boy Wonder, do something with the thing.
I will say I would have liked to see, amongst other things, more Adam West in this movie. Not so much because I consider myself an Adam West fan, but he is memorable, for better or worse.
He has one of the best passwords for his computer program of all time. It's like A7 star 55H star OL5 star DIC star KHEA Star D. It's like the most ridiculous. There's so many stars in this thing. And that's just his password, not in this movie. Don't get it confused.
What are some of the things you'd like about this movie?
What's not to like?
That's a good question.
I love that Aldo, the magician guy, it's borderline like offensive stereotype when they first meet him. He's like the magician, right? He's an illusionist, and he spins in a circle, and he's literally spinning around in a circle, and they do like a dissolve, like a wipe, where he changes into a costume. Yeah, like a
cap.
Yeah, it's like he's supposed to be like a Bushido warrior or something with like the top knot and all that stuff.
I don't know the character's name, but from the neck up, he looks like he's in a bad Halloween costume for that one Street Fighter character that's got like the mohawk and the red underpants on. I'll look it up. Go ahead.
And then he spins around and turns into a white suit. He has a white suit. This guy's voice, he's English. He has like an English accent, but he delivers his voice he's like Matt Berry almost in a way. He delivers like this rich baritone voice with this English accent. And I don't know why. Like, he's very theatrical. He's this magician. He's got the stage show. One of his things is he's trying to set a decoy for the bad soldiers. And he throws this egg down or something, and it turns into an inflatable T-Rex, but like shorter than a person would be. So it kind of confuses the soldier, but I don't really know why why he has like this inflatable dinosaur as his decoy. It's odd.
Zangief.
Oh,
Zangief.
okay. Yeah. You didn't really explain that very well. Mohawk and red underpants.
I'm not a video game player. I don't play a lot of games. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's Zangief.
Well, I'm bad. What do you want me? Why don't you kick fight me about it?
Yeah, let's kick fight. Let's solve it with a kick fight.
That's the best way to do it. Anyway, I really like the kick fighter training montage that they have in the movie. Like, once they assemble the team and they go, do their whole thing.
Yes.
They look like they're just in like the middle of a basement somewhere. And they just threw like some gym mats. Like they lean one against the wall, and there's a guy just like punching it randomly, like
Aldo.
Yeah, Aldo. He kind of looks like
Niles Crane.
That too, now that you said it. But I was going to say he looks a little bit like Roger from Dawn of the Dead when he's got his back to him. It might just be like the coveralls that he's wearing. So he's sitting there in the corner, like punching a floor mat for no apparent reason. The chick of the group is in the most like sexually suggestive like stretch that she could possibly do. And then you have our hero, or whatever, the lead kick fighter dude, Brett. I didn't even realize he was laying on a bed of nails until after Alice Cooper comes and smashes 2 cinder blocks on his chest. He's like, fucking A, man. And then he gets up and there's a bed of nails that have done like nothing to his back. I'm like, this is the most amazing and nonsensical training sequence I've ever seen in a movie.
You left out the best part of the cinder blocks, though.
That he hit him with a sledgehammer?
When he cracks them, when Alice Cooper, whatever his name is, Metalhead, what is his name? Bomber. When Bomber hits the cinder blocks with the sledgehammer, a piece of a cinder block breaks off and lands on the guy's face. And he makes like this frown and he just kind of brushes it off. I think that was a real cinder block. Like, I think that he really did that.
I have a feeling it probably wasn't a real cinder. It's probably like a...
Did you ever have those guys that come to your elementary school and they're like the faith fighters or whatever, and they're trying to show how powerful the, belief in God is or whatever, and the one guy like blows up the hot water bottle and the other guy rips the phone book in half, and the one guy like that's what this is like. You never had that? I didn't even go to like a religious school. I went to regular old public school.
Same.
And we had those guys come in, they're all strong men, and they did shit like this. That's what this reminds me of.
We had dipshits coming with like yo-yos and stuff like that.
Yo-yo fighters. I got it.
Yeah.
I like it.
If they were fighting, it would have been more entertaining. They were just like, oh, this is how you walk the dog. I'm like, it's not, but whatever.
Can we talk about the strip club?
Let's talk about the strip club.
So this is where Brett Katie, Andy Bowman, goes to meet Socrates, Sock. And I don't know quite why the guy's hanging out in the strip club, but this strip club is basically like a hotel bar, and
with one table,
just a mix of men and women sitting in there just having drinks, and this lady in a bikini. I think it's
the cast, not the cast. I think it's the crew.
They don't seem to be very impressed by anything that happens in this, and that explains that they're probably the crew.
They're all suddenly behind the bar too. Like, why is the entire like bar of patrons behind the bar
of the bar?
Yeah.
And the stripper, quote unquote, is a woman in a studded leather bikini or something, just on a maybe a 2 or 3 inch platform, like a box lid, basically.
It's like a shoebox.
A couple shoeboxes. She's on a couple Vans shoeboxes, and she's just like gyrating her hips. And the music they play is like this ragtime piano. All the music in this movie is this weird public domain.
Copyrighted.
Yeah. Like piano music, and somebody's just kind of like doodly bip bop bop doodly bop boop 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 boop.
I don't think it's quite that upbeat, but it is funny because once they get there, Socrates, forget why he gets in a fight, but some guy's there and wants to fight, to kick fight apparently. And this is when he's getting recruited to join his like team or whatever. And
the Kickfighters.
Yeah, I like that. Brett's like, he's like, I got this. And he proceeds to get the shit beat out of him for like a solid like 30 seconds of movie time, which, how long is that supposed to be? Just to like one shot this guy after he's like, wiping his face off constantly. That's not bleeding, even though he's gotten kicked in the head like 9 times at this point.
You know what this movie needs?
More kick fighting.
Jeff Speakman.
It does need Jeff Speakman. I thought that several times, mostly because of that clip that you played over and over again with the more kicking.
Stop with the kicking. I mean, every movie would probably be well serviced with Jeff Speakman, with a Jeff Speakman role.
I think every movie would be well serviced with more kick fighting.
The music, now that I think about it more, it's almost like a Bobby McFerrin type, don't worry. But it's like, Bobby McFerrin's thing is like he kind of scats and bebops over music and whatnot. Yeah. It sounds like 80s early Saturday morning cartoon music, a lot of the shit in this movie.
It's definitely scat. I'll give you that. What are some other high points that we should bring up in this movie?
There's a scene later in the movie where Brett has these nunchucks, and he just pulls them out for like a second. And he pulls them tight, like you do with nunchucks, to show that the chain's strong or something, and that makes it fire bullets out of the end of it. And he never actually uses the nunchucks; he just uses it to shoot 2 guys, and he basically throws them on the ground and walks away.
Yeah, that's a good one. Honestly, like I said, there's so much random shit that, I remember what I really like. I like when they throw the car off the cliff and the car explodes magnificent. Like they're in this weird, there's actually 2 car chases that are worth mentioning in this. One of them is near the end of the movie where I think it's a Jeep goes off a cliff. And it's funny because you see them driving pretty cohesively. And the way this Jeep goes off a cliff, it's like he just forgot to turn the wheel and just goes straight off.
It's like Toons is a driving cat.
Yeah, pretty much. And it is very much like Toons is a driving cat in that it tumbles down a cliff and explodes marvelously. The car chase that might be better though, and I think his guy's name is like Johnny the limo driver or some shit like that. Like there's a limo that is all of a sudden determines that he's being tailed by 2 random cars in like an open desert. So there's nowhere for him to hide, but he's got 2 ladies in the back of the car. I don't remember if it's
Adam West's daughters.
Is it okay? He's like, I gotta lose our tail, ladies, and he starts like he makes like 2 right turns in the middle of like a dust bowl. He's like, I think I got rid of him. Then he proceeds to get out and like get shot or some shit by these guys in the middle of the road.
Yeah, like instantly.
Yeah, it is the best escape scene while simultaneously being the worst escape scene in movie history.
I like to watch movies where I learn something. This movie taught me that limos are not the most evasive cars to be driving when you're being chased.
I could have guessed that, but you're right. This movie highlights it very well.
I mean, the guy's trying to drift in this limo, and it's not working.
I don't think he's trying to. I think he's just kind of doing it by happenstance, I guess. Yeah, I don't think the drift is intentional. I think he just loses control of this like giant car that probably didn't have power steering to begin with. But that whole scene is pretty fucking entertaining, too.
I think this movie in general is pretty entertaining. I love the fact that It seems like on everything that they shoot, it's either they're in a dark parking garage. That's kind of like where every scene takes place, unless it's that strip club, or there's an office scene that's like not in a dark area, but everything else is dark, especially all the parts where the Kickfighters go and I don't know if they're like infiltrating this castle or something to get the daughter back, but everything looks like a dark parking lot or a dark parking garage. And they seemingly only have 1 microphone for every scene, because if there's that character, Hal, he's talking and there's a scene, he just kind of turns around and you can't hear him anymore.
It's almost like they stop the kick fighting and go, hand you the microphone and go back to talking at that point.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff you miss because it's so quiet, but everybody else is fine. It's just one person who happens to not be facing the right way or something along those lines.
So aside from sound design, the lack of a followable plot and desperately needing more kick fighting, is there anything that you didn't like about this movie?
Sometimes there's points, especially watching it twice in 1 week. And I generally don't watch movies that we talk about twice in the week.
I usually don't either. And this one somehow warranted it.
No, you seem to do it a little bit more than I do. But this one...
Yeah, but this one definitely warranted it.
Sounds like it garnered another watch. The pacing it can get really slow at times. Even though it's like entertaining, you're just kind of like, okay, what's going to happen? Is something going to happen here?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think the problem with that actually falls more on the plot than the pacing, because I do think, like I said earlier, I was entertained with the majority of things that happen on the screen in the movie. Like, there's a lot of shit that goes on in this movie that you're like, this is really dumb and entertaining in a way. But when there's not something dumb and entertaining going on the screen, there's not enough to kind of glue scene 23 to scene 24 to be like, all right, we've gone 2 minutes without any kick fighting. What the fuck's going on here? Like, that's kind of what happens with this movie. And that does make it feel, I mean, this is only like an hour and 20 minutes long, but because the plot is so lacking, or the glue that holds it together is so lacking, it does make it feel like a kind of long hour and 20 minutes, because any of those points where there's not something insane happening on the screen, it does make you like, what are we doing now?
I feel like specifically when they start to introduce the team, or when they kind of bring the team all together up until when that rescue mission starts, that's probably the slowest part of the movie. I mean, that montage helps, but they kind of just, they're explaining what they're going to do instead of actually just doing it. There's like this whole extended scene of them in an airplane about to skydive and stuff. And they're like, man, it's really cold in here. And they want to try and impress upon you that Clea, the computer expert, and Brett have this relationship, but he's not having it in the scene. He like doesn't want to talk about it. And it's weird that it goes for so long when there's so little to actually be said or done.
Sounds like a pretty normal relationship to me. So
maybe the perfect relationship,
right.
Some might say. And then tie that in with like the final showdown with Khadisha is so abrupt. Like it just kind of, like the ending, I don't want to really spoil the ending, but the ending, because, you got to see this to believe it. But they have this whole,
very true.
This whole finish of the movie is just like, oh yeah, we got to do this thing. And then they do it. And then they're all at the wedding, because Adam West's daughter is getting married. That's the whole thing. And there's this whole scene with her fiance or whatnot. And that's kind of adds into that pacing where it's really, they don't quite know where to focus the story, it feels like. And at the end of the movie, Brett's just like, oh, where's Brett Katie? And they're like, I think he wanted to try and take some time away to think about some things. And they show him sitting on this rock in the middle of a desert, and they just start playing this sad music, and it's like the end.
Yeah. Well, it says the end, but first it says Night Raiders, which is the other big note I have. I was like, what the fuck is Night Raiders? I put on Night the Kickfighters, but fuck Night Raiders.
That's my favorite band. I love when they sing Sister Christian.
Do you got anything else you want to tack on here before we start rapping on this?
No, let's start rapping on this.
Disappointingly, this is not available for free on a streaming service. One of the reviews that I read out of the 15 I could find, which is not that many, did say no longer available on YouTube. So maybe we'll have to do a little digging to find a link for this one, but we'll see what we can do to help you out there. So you want to kick fight us off into whatever happens next?
I think it's time for something first, though.
What time is it?
Then you're in for a big treat, bro, because it's hot dog time.
It's hot dog time, John.
All right, go for it.
All right. So Night of the Kickfighters feels like it's one of those diamonds in the rough to me. It's bad in a way that when you sit down to watch a crummy movie, you always hope that you see something that really hits with you and scratches this indescribable itch, and this movie does it. It's not perfect. It's a technical mess. They use a lot of stock footage, a lot of unconvincing miniatures sometimes, and sometimes they just use photos to try and represent something in the movie. Like I mentioned before, the movie looks like half of it takes place in a dark parking garage. It doesn't look great, and the audio at times is totally off, but it has that thing, and I can't quite describe what that thing is, but it has that thing that makes me want to tell people about it and say, you got to watch this movie. It has this it factor that makes it fun. And like I said, sometimes we watch a lot of shitty movies, and I know that you watch a lot of shitty movies separately than I do, and I watch shitty movies on my own, and you're always hoping that you discover a movie like this. And I think that adds a lot of weight behind the rating I'm going to give it. So I want to give Night of the Kickfighters 7.5 heat-seeking crossbow bolts out of 11 hot dogs.
All right.
Whose hot dog is this? Huh? Is it yours?
Nah.
Yeah. I've said it before. I really hate the phrase "so bad it's good," but this movie kind of falls into that. Like, this movie is, from a technical standpoint and a storytelling standpoint, in a lot of ways, a bad movie, but it's a lot of fun. Like I said, both times that I watched it, although I was often confused as to what was actually happening, like from a story standpoint, I found myself enjoying what I was watching. And that's really what you want out of a movie, is you just want to enjoy what you're watching. That this movie does deliver that. It's campy. It's ridiculous. I don't know if there's anything that could be more campy than adding Adam West to your movie, and it delivers on that too. The kick fighting that does happen in this movie is fairly unbelievable, but that also adds to the fun of the whole, brouhaha. The characters are they're there. They work for what they are. Like, there's nothing in this movie that's going to make you be like, oh my God, this movie is something that you have to watch, other than the fact that it's a hell of a lot of fun. And it's the kind of thing that this is the textbook example of, like, a bunch of buddies are around, we're having a bunch of beers, we're not really paying attention, we just want something stupid to watch. This is a great option to put on. So I don't feel like I need to, like, beat it down or beat it up too much. Like, it's just a hell of a lot of fun.
Or beat it off.
I mean, maybe. It does have that one stripper that seems like she needs some beating off done or something. That was a weird comment. Anyway, I'm going to give this 7 unconvincing, like, shoeboxes holding up a stripper out of 10 very plump hot dogs, I guess. I don't know. 7 out of 10. It's a fun movie. If you can find this movie, give it a watch. Let us know what you think about it, because I'd like to hear someone else talk about it, because Sean said at the beginning of this episode, if you see this poster, this is a movie that you need to watch. Like, I'm big on the poster selling me, and this poster sold me, like, instantly, and it delivered. Don't believe the ratings on IMDb. 3 out of 10 is way too low. This is the kind of B movie that we'd love to talk about. And on here, I'm looking at Just Watch right now, just to see if there's anything else. This says Night of the Kickfighters is 1991. So we really don't know what year this fucking movie came out.
Came out. That's what we can tell you. Came out.
Yeah. That might explain why I thought it said 1990. I might have seen it somewhere else that said 1990 at some point. So came out ?
The thing with this movie too is, like, the director of this movie is Buddy Reyes. This is the only thing he ever directed. We've got Andy Bowman. Like, this is the only thing he ever showed up in. So it's kind of one of those things where sometimes you find a movie like this and you want to say, oh, let's see if there's other ridiculous shit that these people have put out. And they have put nothing else out. So it adds, like, this almost a bit of a mystery as to, like, why did this get made and why didn't they do anything else? Maybe this put such a bad taste in their mouth about making movies. They're like, yeah, fuck it. There are people in this, like Marcia Carr, never in, maybe like in 2 or 3 movies after this. And that's it. So it's just weird, but it's fun as hell.
There's no budget listed on this movie. That's disappointing. So
$25.
All of it went to Adam West.
Probably.
All right. So changing gears again. This time we're going to downshift, I guess. I don't know. We have a question of the week this week, and I'll give the credit to ChatGPT for writing this question. That ChatGPT asked, how does proper foot positioning affect the power and effectiveness of a roundhouse kick in kick fighting? We went to you, and some of you answered, some of you did not. We're going to start on Instagram, and Average Drewski is going to lead us off, and he says, kicking is more effective than screaming. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. The JCVD tornado kick is the best fucking kick of all time. Okay, that's one way to answer. Any commentary on that?
That's probably a much better answer than I have.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. So, did anyone answer on Facebook? I don't think anyone did. Yeah, no, that's still blank. So, fuck Facebook. Over on X, this is where most of the comments came this week, and I think we should include a link to this particular post because some of these graphics that are included are fucking great. So we're going to start with Faux Bravo, who was tagged to reply to this and gave a rather lengthy response, including like foot positioning images. Says, pivoting your planted foot outward allows you to turn over your kicking leg and get more power. If you can't or don't pivot it, you can get as much, if any, from your hips if you turn from your hips as you turn into the kick. Easier to show than describe in this tweet. Haha. Next tweet. So if my opponent is in front of me and I'm kicking with my right leg, I'm pivoting my left foot outward as I'm kicking. gives you that hip power and the range of motion to kick through. There is a picture of, looks like some khakis and some chucks, and they appear to be in a weird kicking motion.
I have to
Apparently
say
what
that
it looks
answer is almost as impressive as you reading that in one take.
I had to start myself over at one sentence. So back to the normal shenanigans. Boomer over a podcast in the woods says, you need proper foot placement to add maximum foot to face force, and has some guy getting kicked over a highway guardrail without making contact. It's a very 80s movie kick. Our friend Justin over at Pop Culture Reflections podcast, he's the host of the Pop Culture Reflections podcast, which you can find on newrunpodcast.com, says, it prevents you from slipping and falling on your ass and looking like an absolute fucking wanker. Oh, as usual, it happens only in slow motion. Our friends over at Dissect That Film said stabilization is the key, and yeah, that's it. So Sean, do you have an answer for the question of the week this week?
No, I don't. Tornado kick for the win. That's my answer.
My answer is you need to duct tape some ninja stars to your feet so that when you kick, you also have ninja stars on your feet, because that
helps.
Effective. Yes. So I think that's all we got. You got anything you want to tack on here as we start to wrap up on this?
I want to say one thing. I can't believe you didn't read this featured review on IMDb from Life with Lisa. The subject is, this is a 10 out of 10. The subject says, or the subject line says, Lisa Thames or Thames. And then underneath that, it says, Lisa Alpert Thames is a veteran actress. She portrayed Kathy with the warmth and doe-eyed innocence of a daddy's girl, but a good girl. Also, Michael Angelo is awesome.
I considered that, but I thought the death row comment kind of shined over that.
Michael Angelo Kowalski, a.k.a. Bomber.
Oh, is that his actual name?
Yeah.
I didn't even look that close. Well, I'm glad that there's a cast member in here that is, or maybe, I don't know what the hell's going on. Anyway, are we done with this one? Are we wrapped up on this night of kick fighting?
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Okay. So if you enjoy what we're talking about, or if you don't, and you want to leave us a message, be it positive or negative, you can do that. You can send us messages on our site, which is crap.town. That's also where all of our previous episodes are and all future episodes. There's links to everything on there. You can also find all of our previous episodes and current episodes at yourunpodcast.com, as well as all the other great members of the You Run Podcast Network. And then, of course, you can find us on all the social medias all over the place at Dewey Podmonster. If there's a social media network, you can search us on there and you'll probably find us. Last but certainly not least, we also would greatly appreciate if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is also at Dewey Podmonster on YouTube. We do stuff on there too. And maybe Sean will tell you more about that. Sean, what else is there?
Yeah, check out our YouTube channel. Like John said, youtube.com/@ Dewey Podmonster. We've been posting these kind of bi-weekly STS episodes. We call them STS. That means shoot the shit. And we cover a broad range of topics from Canadian tuxedos to kids at concerts to get off my lawn, I think. Oh, and arch support in shoes. So if you're interested in any of that, we've actually talked about that. Also, thanks to everybody who is answering the poll questions or voting on the polls. We ask that you leave a review of this show on the platform of your choice, the podcast platform of your choice. It really helps out the show and helps us spread our wings to get other people into this kind of garbage that we talk about. And if you look in the show notes, we leave links to everything we talked about. If you click on any of that, we earn like a couple pennies on every gazillion dollars that you spend. If you're interested in my Michigan craft beer reviews, you can check them out at youtube.drafttherapy.com, or you can find me on all the social media networks at Draft Therapy.
All right, so that's all we got for this week. Until next week, we're going to say have a good week and go out and start kick fighting. Cheers.
Blah, 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 blah. I'll never forget the way you smiled at me, the way you held my hand, the way you loved me. We shared laughter and joy amid the dangers around us, though it never seemed to matter as long as we're together. So I'll carry on with your love in my heart always, and I'll do the things we've just dreamed to do before. The wonder of it all shall never pass away.
still have to watch that Steven Seagal colonoscopy video.
Please leave that in at the end of the recording.